Welcome back to the Accurate Pre-Race Show for the 2003 British Grand Prix. Cars starting to line up on the grid. You know, as we all know, Renault has excelled this season by taking full advantage of that Friday private test session. Of course, you know, that limits their testing away from the Grand Prix weekends, and that puts extra pressure on their test driver, Allan McNish, whenever those tests actually happen. So Peter Windsor caught up with Allan to discuss some very rigorous duties he's had as a test driver.
A frantic week of testing for all teams after the French Grand Prix, because there is now a testing ban in place in Formula One until September the 1st. At Renault, there were 4 cars at Barcelona, and never more so was Allan McNish put through the mill. He broke the record of the number of laps tested by one driver in one day at the Spanish circuit, and was still around to talk about it later.
We had a big test in Barcelona, and obviously with restricted testing anyway through the season to 20 days, when we do have our runs, we've got to make sure they count. However, with 3 days at Barcelona, it was a bit more extended than we had normally, but when we got into that weekend, I'll tell you, it was very busy. We did 146 laps in the first day. It's over 2 Grand Prix distances. I sat the guys down in the engineering department and said, look, you know, this is 3 days, this is pretty heavy work, especially Barcelona with 36 degrees of air temperature, and it's quite humid as well.
Well, it's nice to know they're actually making you do a bit of work for all that money they're paying you. How did the next 2 days go?
A little bit less. We had just 100 laps on both of those days, so just you know, under 2 Grand Prix distances. We did in total 334 laps, I think it was, which is just over 1,500 kilometres, and that's a lot, there's no question about it, for a Formula One car. But it wasn't just difficult for me, it was the mechanics as well, because we're coming into the pits and changing tyres on the tyre programme extremely often. But the other thing is, because we were doing such high mileages, we actually had engine changes through the day, and they got those down to about 45 minutes from when the car came in to getting it up, getting the engine off, the new one in, and then back out onto the track. So there was, as they say, no rest for the wicked.
So what actually is the status quo now? Who holds the record for the most number of laps done in a day at Barcelona in a test?
Allan McNish with a Renault. I spoke to Alex Wirtz afterwards, and he said, yeah, you've been doing a few laps, because he was in the new car for McLaren, and they weren't out very much, so he's, I think, sitting watching more than anything else. And he said, yeah, you've been doing a few laps. And I said, yeah, we seem to. And he said, but don't worry, I still hold the record, 140. I said, no, 146. And at that point he got depressed, you know, it was like, oh my God, one of my records has gone. But I don't think many people will be trying to attempt to break it in the very near future, but I'm sure Flavio will have other ideas at the next one.